Most people try to build a personal brand by just posting content, and that's exactly why they fail. The creators who actually win in 2026 are not posting randomly, but instead they are playing a game with a clear character, a clear mission, and a system that compounds every single time they show up. Now in this how many ever hours of full course I'm going to give you, I'm going to walk you through the exact step-by-step system to build a magnetic, profitable personal brand from scratch. From figuring out who you are, to choosing the right platform, to turning one piece of content into an entire growth engine. And by the end of this, my hope is that you will have a complete blueprint that you can run today to know exactly who you are, what to post, where to post it, and how to grow your influence. And I recommend not skipping any parts of this because every single thing will compound to bigger and bigger things. Now, most creators usually jump straight into content without understanding who they are. That's exactly what I did in the very beginning part of my content journey, and that's why everything feels a little bit forced and maybe even a little bit replaceable. And I will show you exactly how to break down your experiences, your beliefs, and stories so that your content can actually have a strong foundation. Now, the first part of this video is going to be about the foundation. What's a personal brand actually is and what it isn't. So if you're here, welcome. My name is Brandon. I'm the owner of Fortuna Studios, and we've helped many personal brands grow from zero to hundreds of thousands of followers. Whether it's on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube, we've done everything from short form to long form to some of the people that you probably know on the internet. And we've done this across many different industries, from real estate, services, things like creators, sports betting, aviation, really all the niche that you can think of. And in this video, my goal is to show you the exact playbook and the exact framework of what I would do if I were to build your personal brand today. And there's a reason why I think building your personal brand is important now more than ever. Whether you're a person, you're a business, or you're thinking about starting a business, maybe you just moved from a job, now you want to be an entrepreneur, there's a lot of leverage that you can have when you have your own brand. But in order to do that, you need to understand first what makes a brand in the first place. So first, let's define what is a personal brand, what's a content creator, and what's an influencer, because there's a real difference between the three. A personal brand is typically one person that have influence over whoever, over their community, whether it's in person or it's online. It's one person that is known for specific skill sets, specific story, or specific value that people can tie themselves into. In order to better understand what a personal brand is, you need to understand what brand actually is. So the word brand really comes from the old days when we used to brand cows and cattle. It's a word that is used for a lot of farmers to know which cows and cattle are whose and whose is not theirs. And that's where we come with the word brand. But I really like, in the context of personal brand, the definition that Alex Hormozi has, which is brand is an association of different things to each other. So for example, if I'm wearing a red jacket, you can probably associate that I like the color red. Or if you see me at the tennis court pretty often, you can probably associate that I like to play tennis. Vice versa. If I like to eat McDonald's, you can probably associate that I am a foodie or I am a fast food person, or maybe I don't take care of my health. If I were to associate myself, let's say, with a bunch of rich people, let's say they're all millionaires, then you probably would think that you would associate that I hang out with high net worth people. A brand is just an association to who you are as a person. When somebody think of your name, maybe even what you do, what would instantly connect in their brain? Now, what is a content creator? A content creator, it's kind of like this catch-all term today that really I think is very interesting. A lot of people have a lot of different opinions and definition of it. But the way I define a content creation is somebody that have an artistic desire to actually create something good to the world. It doesn't always have to be digital or videos all the time. It can be audio, it can be written piece of work, it can be music. I consider a musician as a form of content creator. People do painting, or even sometimes people that generate a specific value of goods to the community. For the sake of purpose of this course, we're gonna define content creator as somebody that create good things, a value online, whether that is a video, whether that is images, audio, or whether that is also just written piece of content. Now, what is an influencer? I feel like influencer was a big thing, let's say about 5 to 8 years ago. The way I kind of define influencers is typically people with a following. What is a following? A following, in our definition, is that someone who can tell that specific community or that specific following what to do, and that will do them for on the behalf of that influencer. So, for example, if this influencer says, I want you to buy this nice shorts, and some people do it, then that influencer have influence with their following or with their community. So that is the difference between a personal brand, a content creator, and an influencer. Now, can somebody be all three at the same time? I think they can. Somebody can be a personal brand who creates content that is also a content creator, who is also influential in a specific community. Let's say that you are an influential person in the space of nature photography. Whenever you recommend a specific spot to check out and to go to, a lot of people want to go there. That means you have generated enough influence in your personal brand, maybe through creating content, and you are an influential person in that specific space. So now let's talk about why 2026 is the best and probably arguably the hardest time to build your own personal brand. In 2026, we saw things like AI. We saw things like people moving away from digital. We saw things that we never really thought about would be here. Things from AI videos to AI photos. We don't even know what's real anymore. And some people have said that 2026 and beyond, we're in this trust recession because a lot of people on the internet don't really want to believe anything that they see or anything that they feel anymore because they could be created using a machine like an AI. And in this video, we're not gonna go over how to create an AI personal brand, but I think one of the biggest advantage if you actually have a personal brand that is influential and understand how to actually garner that brand is actually gonna be your biggest advantage this year. Because as more and more people wanting to feel more connection, whether that is in person, online, or in any kind of community, if you have a strong personal brand that people resonate with and connect with, that's gonna be something that you can bring throughout any single career decision, any single types of things that you want to do. And there's just a lot of advantage inside of having that influence. And I also personally think 2026 is one of the hardest time to do this. Not only that there's so many people in the market that's currently creating content, you know, people like content creators that are making 34,000 pieces of videos per month, or even people getting billions of views like Mr. Beast. But at the same time, it also presents the biggest opportunity for you to be real. Because I think a lot of people right now is seeking people who are like them and wanted to connect with other people with similar interests, similar beliefs, and that's where your personal brand comes into play. So whether you want to build a personal brand to launch a business, whether you want to build a personal brand to just have a community online and make new friends, you want to make a personal brand so that you can create an in-person community and impact, or you want to be the biggest personal brand in the world, maybe something like a Mr. Beast, Ryan Trahan, or any of those creators. That's why right now is one of the best years to do this, because when you can create your own community, they will support you in wherever you go, whether that is a career change, a launch of a business, or anything, maybe open up new gateways of opportunities. There's a lot of different things that you can do when you have a personal brand. That's why it's right now is one of the best times to build this brand. Now, before we lay down the foundation of your personal brand, we gotta think about all these common myths that you probably have heard of that made people stuck before they actually start creating their own personal brand. So typically, there are 3 types of personal brand paths that you can follow depending on which journey you are currently in. The first is what I call the documenter. The documenter is someone that is currently on a path towards something that is probably not where they want to be yet. Whether they're building a business, they're starting a specific type of craft, or they are learning a new skill. In this first type of personal brand, you are probably the documenter of your journey. You talk about where you currently are, where you're trying to go, and at the same time, you're sharing your experience to other people that might be on that same journey. Now, this is a pretty cool type of personal brand because there's no wrong answer in terms of being this path. You can just document how you currently are doing things, what you're trying, what you're experimenting, and that becomes your story and that becomes your content. Think about where Gary Vee was 10 years ago when he first created content for his wine channel. All he did was just he documented him trying out different wines and just talking about wines from what he thinks is cool. Gary Vee at the time didn't really think about telling people a specific thing or specific message, that all he did was just document his journey. So that's the first archetype that you can follow as a personal brand. Now, the second archetype is what I call the guide. So the guide is typically the expert in a specific field. So if you have done something that is significant in your career, in your skill, or in a specific field that a lot of people want to aspire to, and let me tell you, a lot of people want to aspire to be you, no matter what kind of level of journey that you're in, you can start becoming the guide of the conversation. So what does this personal brand actually do? Well, typically, they have a lot more storytelling of what they would do, what they wouldn't do, telling people, guiding them about a specific journey. Let's say if you are in the DJing space and you want to tell people of what mistakes you should avoid as a beginner DJ and what you should do if you want to be a professional DJ. That is a guide type content that you can create, and your personal brand is going to reflect that. Or let's say if you are a fitness expert and you have done Mr. Olympia or you've actually competed in a specific competition, you can create content as the guide telling people, hey, here's what I would do differently if I were to start my bodybuilding journey. Or here's the type of exercises I would do if I want to get this specific type of muscle by this point of time. So the guide type of personal brands typically have an aspirational aspect to it, whether if you're in business, you've exited multiple millions, or maybe you're just living a happy life, a happy, simple life in a remote island. And that is aspirational for certain people, right? So there's a lot of different ways you can play with this specific archetype of personal brand, which I think is one of the more common ones that you'll see on the internet or any digital space. Now, the third type of personal brands is the hybrid between the two, where you are a combination between the documenter, but also you are the guide at the same time. Typically, on this type of archetype, you blend the type of content that you do. As a documenter, maybe you haven't gotten to where you want to be yet, so you document your journey along the way. But at the same time, you also acknowledge that you've gone a certain paths. So maybe your business have made $50,000 a month, $100,000 a month, but you want it to be at $1 million a month, right? You can still become a guide for people that are in the earlier journey of that specific path, whether that is teaching people how to DJ, whether that is fitness, maybe even getting people to want to play better at soccer or musical instrument. Whatever that is, you can become the hybrid type of archetype of your personal brand. That way you'll also be able to share your story of where you're at and also become the guide for those that wants to get to where you are. And honestly, that hybrid model is probably one of the best ones that I've seen right now performing really well. And before we start laying down the foundation, we're gonna talk about the common myths that I keep seeing people fall into before they start their own brand. The first common myth is that you have to achieve something extraordinarily big to start documenting, which I think is not true. You can start from level one, that you're in the pursuit of something. You wanted to document your journey, maybe starting a business or doing a new career or learning how to do certain things, right? And you don't have to have a $2 billion exit to start creating content. I think that is far from the truth. The second myth that I keep seeing people saying is that you need all of these expensive gear. Now, yes, I am recording right now inside of a studio with a pretty fancy camera, but I've had these cameras and I've been in a production space for a long time, so I kind of love shooting with these cameras. But you don't have to. Some of the best creators right now and some of the most influential people right now have recorded really on their phone. If you have some sort of smartphone that have a camera and it's not, bad quality in terms of the footage, it's not pixelated, you should be fine. You don't need expensive gear. What you need is to hone in your stories. Another myth that I've heard is that you need to be an extraordinarily great speaker to be in front of the camera. Now, the one thing that I would say to you, that it is a skill. If you can speak in front of the camera, probably the better that you can connect with your audience. But if you wait until you're really good at something before actually doing it, you're missing out the whole point. You want to start doing it so that you can become better, because the more that you do things, the better that you get at that specific type of skill. This works with any skill, including speaking in front of the camera. If you wanted to have scripts in the beginning, write some scripts and have a teleprompter up. If you wanted to practice yourself speaking straight in front of the camera without any breaks, go ahead, you can do that too. The more you do it, the better you'll get. And the more that you know your topic, actually, the better that you'll get at speaking on behalf of those topics. Another myth, there's like millions of these myths, but one other big one that I'm seeing people keep saying that keep getting them stuck is that, oh, Brandon, I don't think I have an interesting story. Now, that is actually the most further from the truth, because everybody have their own unique way that they view the world. Whether it's something that you've experienced before in the past, or something that uniquely a specific talent that you don't think is important. I've met somebody before that like, oh, what they do is they plan this specific type of events for corporations. And then this person thinks that he doesn't have any story to tell the people because, what I do is boring. What do you mean by that? Everybody can find things interesting, and it's actually a skill to make things interesting. It's a skill that you can develop on how you can turn a specific subject into something that people would watch. That is a skill that a lot of these content creators and influential people are able to do. That can be trained. No matter what field that you're in, you can make it interesting. Now, in this module, you've learned about what is the difference between a personal brand, a content creator, and influencer. You've also learned what is the actual definition of a brand, and also why right now is some of the best and even the hardest time to build a personal brand. You've also learned about the 3 types of personal brands that can grow into something, the 3 different archetypes, 3 different types that, depending on where you want to go, whether you want to be the documenter, or you want to be the guide, or you want it to be the hybrid, you can take path along your personal branding journey. And also some of the common myths that I heard so many times that I just want to break down. Now, a brand is not what you say, it is what people connect you to. If you do not control that specific aspect of your brand, your content will feel super scattered and it will feel forgettable. Now, in this section, I will show you how to define what you want to be known for and also what you refuse to be associated with, so that everything that you do will compound over time. Remember, brand is built over time. It's not something that just you say, boom, it just happens and everybody knows you for a certain thing. That's not how it happens. It takes time. Us working with our clients when it comes to do this, it takes them time to kind of build the brands that they want to build. So the first thing that we got to do is we got to figure out who you are as a person, how to position yourself, what niche you want to be in, what type of audience you want to attract, and even what is your unique angle? What is your USP? What is your unique selling proposition? Why should I watch you as a person? Kind of like what we talked about in the previous module, a brand is an association of things, and those things that you associate with will become the biggest differentiator of what kind of brand that you build. Now, the first thing that you gotta understand, you probably heard that riches is in the niches, and I think there is something that people misunderstood about that saying. Now, niching down, I can say it's a good thing, but you also gotta understand a couple of different things about niching down to make sure that you don't pigeonhole yourself into a specific hole. Niching down is probably one of the best things that you can do if you're first starting on a specific type of content journey. Whether you're choosing the documenter or the guide path, both ways work, but niching down, you have to do it strategically in order to gain the most benefit of niching down. Now let's think about it this way. Let's say that you are a farmer and that you own a strawberry farm in Minnesota, and that you wanted to create content teaching people how to also have strawberry farms. Now, when people think about niching down, some people might think like, okay, I need to make videos about how to grow strawberries on a farm, specifically in Minnesota. Well, I think that's a great way to niche down, but think about how small of that circle that is capable of watching your content. When you are only doing that, you're almost like pigeonholing yourself in that specific niche and market. Am I saying that you can't be successful as someone that's creating content and building personal brands specifically for strawberry farmers in Minnesota? You can absolutely crush at that. But if your goal to eventually grow your influence, there might be some strategic things that you might be thinking. Maybe instead of doing that, you can just talk about how you grow strawberries in a specific climate. Now, maybe a Minnesota climate would also be the same as a climate in, let's say, Argentina. I'm not a farmer. I don't know. Don't come after me. But for example, if that two matches, then people in Argentina, you're opening up yourself to a bigger audience, still talking around the same niche. So what you really got to think about when you are wanting to pick a niche, number one is, what is this specific niche do I want to own? And the second thing you got to think about is, what is the appetite of this niche? Let's say if you want to talk about fishing. Fishing is such a broad niche, but let's say you are specifically a tuna deep sea fisher that only goes out in Baja California in Mexico. You got to think about, if you want to create that specific video, you're probably going to only attract a specific amount of audience. But if you think about the deep sea fishing for tuna, that is a pretty big community that people actually watch. There's an appetite, there's a demand of that specific content. Now, if you kind of pigeonhole yourself to specifically like, oh, I only do deep sea fishing with this specific boat in this specific time of year in Mexico, it might be too small. But if you kind of like expand yourself just a tiny bit and you kind of get those demand of appetite of content that people already have, now you appeal to a bigger audience. You can bring yourself with a little bit of a mark and potentially gain that audience to like your personal brand. You might be thinking now, okay, well, in order for me to niche down, first I need to know even what I want to niche about. Well, that's what we're going to talk about now. This is what I call the 3-circle overlap between passion, skill, and market demand. So let's imagine yourself like 3 different diagrams. Think about these as Venn diagrams. On the one side of the diagram, you have passion. On the next part of the diagram, the circle, you have skill. And on the last part of it, you have market demand. Now, if you put this down on the paper and you can start writing down what are the different passions that you have as a person, and think about the different things, not just maybe your core competency, maybe some things that you never thought that you like. So for example, for me, my core competency would be marketing, would be branding, video creation. But at the same time, I'm also passionate about traveling. I'm also passionate about powerlifting. I'm also passionate about doing things like racket sports, like tennis or pickleball. I'm also passionate about music and producing music. I also like cars. I don't like classic cars. I like modern cars. So those are some of my passions that I can put in that circle. And now for the next circle, you can have yourself the skill section. So the skill is something that you're good at or something that you're working on to be good at. So what I would do here is write down all the skills that you have, and I would say what level of skill that you have, and be honest with yourself, right? I would put myself marketing and branding under there, video creation, video production, maybe now AI video generation. You can even put like now AI vibe coding on there, and maybe some skill set that might not be usual in your career. For me, it would be powerlifting, tennis, pickleball, music production. So all of those sections you can write down in your skill section. And last but not least is your market demand. So this is the list where you can evaluate the market and see what kind of content performs well and what people already like. I know for sure that fitness content is huge. There's a lot of powerlifting content out there. There's also a lot of travel content. I love travel. I love cars. So there's a market demand around there, right? Like I love especially the nice newer cars. I love the modern cars, the Teslas, Cybertrucks, all that stuff. There's a demand there. There's also a demand in marketing and branding. Not as big, but there's a demand of people wanting to do marketing and branding compared to cars. Cars gonna be way more massive, right? In music production, there's also a market demand of people wanting to listen to new remixes and all that stuff. So now you have a better idea of what you're passionate about, what your skill set is, and what the market really wants. Now think about from all those 3 different sections, where do they all intersect? And where they all intersect is some of the choices that you can make on what you can be niching down on. Let's say I want to go with cars and I like marketing and branding. That's my skill set. And that there's a market demand for market and branding. So I would make content breaking down about how specific car brands are going to market themselves. Wink, wink, that's a future video hint, right? Or let's say I like traveling. That's part of my passion. I like traveling and learning about culture. My skill set, let's say, is video creation, right? I love making videos and taking photos. And right now there's a really big demand on mini documentary series. So maybe I can create some sort of brand to niche down in mini documentary series about cultural history from around the world. That's a cool niche, right? Nobody really has it, but there's a demand for it. So you know that you can always rely on that demand to really grow your brand around that. So think about this three circle overlap and take some time to really think it through. And you can always change this out later as well. You don't have to have a very solid answer. If anything, in your content creation journey, you're gonna grow and learn a lot more about who you are and what you like, what your skill set is gonna improve and evolve. And this Venn diagram will eventually evolve with you as well. Now that we have that three circle overlap to kind of really learn about who you are, next is we gotta really identify who you are actually talking to. Now, if you've done your research in your market demand, you can kind of think about who are the people actually watching this content. You can easily tell, is it meant for kids? Maybe like, 18 and below, where it's like every single edit changes in the next 2 seconds, like those like Gen Alpha edits. It's like, oh my God, there's so many things here. Or is it more like the older generation, right? Maybe it's like 30 plus people that are watching this, where the mini documentaries feel slow and then the footage feels cinematic, right? You can identify this by looking at the market demand of what people are actually consuming. Maybe if you're targeting people that are working in a specific corporate type of level, maybe it's like the marketing side of things, right? Like maybe I'm talking to marketers, then I would use marketing specific language, or a lot of these marketers are visual people. So I would bring a lot of visuals into my videos, right? So understand and identify who you're actually talking to, because if you know who you're talking to, and what I like to do, just a pro tip, is actually create a persona with a character. Nowadays with AI, you can even create a face of it, right, with a character, and think about that character. Let's say you made a character that is his name is Johnny. Johnny is a 29-year-old that works at a corporation in marketing. Johnny likes to spend time hanging out with his friends over the weekend, and he likes learning about new things that related to his work in marketing. And Johnny also likes traveling and having a good time with his friends. If I have a persona like this and I have it ready to go at any point, now every single video idea can go through this filter. Now the next part is, how do you actually make yourself unique? And this is what I call building your only I can say this angle. What is that like for you? You might know Alex Ramosi as someone who has sold $100 million worth of company to, whatever private equity, right? You know him as a $100 million person. Only he can say that. Only he can say he's done a $100 million exit with his tank top, right? Think about Outdoor Boys. Think about that creator. He's the only one that can say that he just posts videos of him going out to the woods, going out to Antarctica for a whole week with just camping and nothing much really to bring. Not really my taste, but I like watching his stuff, right? So he can only say that he does that. Think about Mr. Beast, right? Mr. Beast, what's the word that you can think of when you're thinking about Mr. Beast's brand? In my own words, I define him as a spectacle, right? He has a spectacle over everything that he does. So he does a survival show or survivor show on an island. He has to be the biggest island or the most remote island, right? It's a spectacle with his brand. Now think about Ryan Trahan, one of my favorite creators out there. He doesn't have spectacle for his brand, right? But instead, he has it more relatable, more connection. He has it a little bit more goofy, right? And that style that he evolved over time is something that he can only say that he does. So think about what that is for you. Think about what unique sense of character, what unique sense of self that you can bring to the video, because you don't want to just sound and be like everybody else in the industry. But let's be honest, in the beginning, you're probably going to borrow some voices from other people in your industry, which is fine. And that's how you're going to evolve to become your own voice, and eventually becomes only you can say this. If you own a business, an easiest thing to do this is to talk about your case studies. Nobody can say that you've done certain things for a certain client. You've won them hundreds of thousands of dollars. Or you're a lawyer that you just saved them from a big lawsuit and saved them like millions of dollars, right? Nobody else can copy the proof. And if you can only say that I've done this and only I can say this, that's what makes you unique in your space. So what can you actually do to research your competition in this space? Well, the easiest way to do this, what I like to do, is you can always create a burner account in your platforms. Now, we're kind of moving ahead here a little bit, but it'll make sense why I wanted to mention this here. Let's say you create another account and you follow some of the people that you respect in your space, whether that's fishing, fitness, business, marketing, whatever. Start following, subscribing some of their things, and start to see what kind of topics they talk about. What's their language? Are they a little bit more relaxed? Are they a little bit more upbeat? Are they a little bit more of like having a lot of nice effects, right? Or are they the type that just talks in front of the camera inside of their car? That's how you do research without really copying anybody else in your space. So what you can do is actually you want to copy with taste instead of copy and paste. Now, I don't want to take credit for that. My friend John Uche said that quote, and I think that perfectly reflects how the content creator world is. You don't want to just copy and become somebody else because nobody else can be that person and nobody else can be you. What you can do is you can research a couple of different accounts, see what their ideas are, see what their formats are, and see how you can actually tailor that to your own likes and your own personality. Now, remember those 3 Venn diagrams that you created earlier? Try to keep mixing and matching those and see which part of this can I actually leverage or can I actually make my own that I can see that, oh, this is already working with that creator. So I can actually put my own spin to this and make it better. Maybe I'm gonna be the more nonchalant person about it. Or maybe I'm gonna be the person that have the most graphics, the most awesome visuals. Or maybe I'm the person who has the most cinematic visuals, right? When you're doing competitive research, always look at and paint the picture of who do you have currently on a chessboard, per se, where you can fill the gaps within that specific space. And once you have all of that, now you might be thinking, get your gear running, and I love that you do. If you're getting it this far, by the way, make sure you click subscribe because it really will help my channel. But the next thing that you can do is that you can write your 1 sentence for your brand statement. So what does that mean? It's a fancy marketing term, which basically is like who you are as a brand. So let's say Brandon Fortino is blank that talks about blank that also believes in blank and he does not do blank. It's always good to have who you are, what you do, and what you're not to define your brand in a statement. Because when you really know what you believe in, what you typically do, and what you are not, then you'll be able to start to filter out. Again, our whole point of doing this is creating a foundation and a filter out system so that you can pick better ideas and create uniqueness in your own brand. So let's recap a little bit about what we learned so far. So we've learned what does it actually take to create the foundation of a brand. We figured out how to actually look inwards and learn about our passions, our skill sets, and also what the market demands. And more importantly, how can we come up with that only I can say this angle? That way you can position yourself as an authority in that space. And next, how to do research without copy and pasting, but instead you can do copy and taste. You can add a little bit of flavor into the actual industry, the actual space that you're in. That way you'll be able to add your own uniqueness and add a little bit more diversity. And if anything, it'll only gravitate more people into your brand. And lastly, I recommend everybody to have your 1 sentence brand statement. That way, whether you wanted to have a team in the future, or maybe you have a bunch of video ideas that you do, or maybe in the future you want to think about getting brand sponsorships, you can use this brand statement as your guiding principle on making any of those decisions. So trying to grow on every platform is the fastest way for you to stay small. You need to pick one place where you can actually win first. And in this section, I will break down how to choose the right platform that fits your strengths so that you can grow naturally instead of forcing that growth. So nowadays, there's a lot of platforms for you to choose from. And one of the biggest questions that somebody always asks me is, what platform should I be in? And the answer is, it depends. I know it's not your favorite answer out there, but let me explain to you why. Because every single platform that you choose is kind of like a business decision. It's an important choice of which place you want to build your community on. Each of these have their own types of preferences. And the way I look at this is that typically each of these platforms have their own demands and own things that makes it well. Typically they have slightly different algorithms from each other. They have different formats that works best on each platform or the other. And also they have different best practices on how you can actually win in these platforms. So in this section, I'm going to go over all of the different platforms and what are the advantage and disadvantage of that specific platform and who is it actually for. And if you are just starting out, what I always recommend is pick one platform or 2 at the most to really dive deeper on. And typically that's going to be the platform that is going to suit your strength best. And at the same time, it's going to be the platform that your audience will be in, your target customers, or even the audience you wanted to pursue. The reason why I said one or two is that when you split your attention too far, you're not going to be able to focus on which one you should manage and monetize. But at the same time, I always recommend people to post on all the platforms, even though their focus should be one, because sometimes there are overlapping formats in each of these platforms, and there's always a marketing play when you distribute to all the platforms, but you focus on one, and it's also going to help your search engine optimization as you're growing your personal brand, making you more easily searchable on the internet. So let's break down the most common mediums that is available to us right now in this current state of social media and platforms. The first is written. So this is your standard written type of medium. Things like texts, blogs, anything like that is count as written. We also have images. So think about platforms like Instagram. Think about platforms like now X that can post images on there, Facebook, or even platforms like Pinterest, right? Images typically looks great if you have any visual type of niche that you're in and you want to showcase your work. Let's say that if you're in art, interior design, construction, fashion, any of that stuff will be great in images. The next medium format that is available is audio. So if you're great at talking and keeping people engaged, this is one of the best mediums for you. So think about podcasts, think about audiobooks, all these different things that you can do that relates to audio. And obviously the biggest elephant in the room is going to be video. There is the format that is crushing it right now and can be repurposed to so many different things, which I'll talk about later in this video. But people always say like, oh, should I always start with video? Do I have to only do video? And the real question is no. I've seen people that are successful still with written platforms, with image platforms, or even with medium like audio. But in my opinion, I always recommend people to go with video because you'll be able to repurpose all of that stuff into other mediums later on, which I'll show you in a second. Which brings us to the first platform, which is YouTube. Now, YouTube undoubtedly is one of the oldest social media platforms in this whole list. They're one of the OGs, and if you've known YouTube since the very beginning, it has changed over time. The version of YouTube that we have right now is one of the best platforms, in my opinion, to grow your personal brand. And the reason being is that YouTube have a lot of different aspects that can make you successful as a creator. So some of the things that you can do on YouTube are things like long form videos, which is a video format. You can have YouTube Shorts, which is also a video format that is shorter and vertical. You also have a community feature, which is a written format. And you can build your community on YouTube. You also have a live stream format, which is a format that is highly emerging right now and actually the best format to build connection with people. So you have 4 different mediums inside of this one platform. And to be quite honest, I always tell a lot of our clients if they wanted to start creating a brand to really focus in on YouTube as far as one of the primary or one of the few primary platforms because of the versatility. But that's not all of it. One other thing that YouTube has that a lot of these other platforms don't have is that YouTube is a search engine tool. Now, if you don't know, YouTube is actually owned by Google, which is one of the biggest search platforms in the world today, right next to now probably ChatGPT or any of those AI LLMs. But because of this, people go to YouTube with search intent, which means that they have something that they want to discover. And there's a lot of different strategies that you can do on YouTube that can capitalize on that. Think about the last time where you have your phone malfunctioning or your computer needing to be fixed. What is the first thing that you do? You go on YouTube and you're trying to find how to fix these certain things. And somebody's video showed up. Even though that video probably have terrible quality, maybe with terrible audio, but actually solve your problem, that video is getting views. It's probably you don't even know that it's getting like thousands of views, maybe even millions of views. So YouTube is not only that it's a social media platform, it's also a search platform and also an entertainment platform, all in one platform. And I think that's what makes YouTube so great. According to the statistics, YouTube is actually one of the biggest platforms when it comes to search traffic in the entire internet. So a lot of people use this platform to just search for everything and everything. People can go to YouTube to want to be entertained after work and they want to just like turn on YouTube, or they could be wanting to solve a specific problem and they're searching for that specific problem. There's two different ways to go about this. And I think depending on your brand, you can leverage both of those things together and build a really successful brand and personal brand on YouTube. Now, what else is YouTube that is interesting? Well, because it's an entertainment platform, the way the algorithm work is actually more similar to Netflix than other platforms. And let me tell you why. Think about the last time you go on Netflix and you don't have a particular movie you want to watch or a particular show. You go on Netflix, you probably scroll down a couple of different, you look at the little titles, you look at the little pictures on there, the movie covers. You also probably look at a little bit of the trailers. And that's exactly what YouTube is. If you notice, YouTube has provided their homepage of all of the videos that they think you're going to be interested in. Because of that, when you hover over on the cursor, it'll play the first 5 seconds or 10 seconds of the video, which is kind of like a trailer, right? And if you think about it, YouTube is one of the few platforms that really utilizes thumbnails. So the type of thumbnails and presentation that you have is going to be very, very important when you are creating content on YouTube. So that's something that you got to think about if you want to dive into here. In YouTube, there's something called packaging. So how you package your video will matter most when it comes to the success of your video. What does packaging really mean? Packaging really means what is a title and a thumbnail? Is this something that makes people curious? Is this something that makes people want to click? Or is this something that people are currently searching for right now? And how do I communicate that in a single image on the thumbnail that makes people want to click? So there's a lot of different things you can do with YouTube here. And I can do a whole breakdown on YouTube. Let me know in the comments if you want to make me do that. But that's one of the things that makes YouTube such a good platform to build your personal brand. Let's say that you're only comfortable doing shorts videos, which is videos under 60 seconds. So you can create a vertical video under 60 seconds, post it as a YouTube short. And when you're ready, you can always upgrade to long form videos, which is videos that is typically about 3 minutes, that is horizontal, have a thumbnail, title, all the things, and keep people entertained, bring value to people, keep building the community, and eventually, maybe you want to even do a live stream on there, right? We had clients that we helped doing live streams on YouTube so that they're going to be able to connect deeper with their subscribers and their audience. So YouTube is kind of like a long game platform that, in my opinion, is one of the most worth it platform out there, because typically people that are going there is one of the people that have the highest intent and they really, really want to connect with you on the platform. Now, another thing to also think about is typically on average, people watch about 3 to probably 10, max 15 different YouTubers that they're already familiar with. So think about that, how they typically already have a specific set of 10 to 15 people that they watch all the time. So if you can get into one of these 15, you're gonna have an audience that is loyal to you, that wants to keep watching your content, provided that you do make good content in that platform. And because of YouTube's versatility, there's a couple of different plays and strategies that you can do here. So the first strategy that you can do on YouTube is to post only shorts videos. So shorts videos is something that is vertical and 60 seconds or less, and you can have a good hook and talk about things that people really enjoy or people really like, or even like create some sort of content that gets people to stop the scroll. Kind of similar to TikTok and Instagram Reels when it comes to the algorithm. They're gonna send your content to people where they think that it's gonna enjoy it the most. You wanna make sure that you optimize for scroll stoppingness to make sure that you have a really great hook, really great topic that people care about so that you can get that views and that growth that you want in your platform. Another strategy that you can do is you can always create long form videos and repurpose that to short form videos. And you can have your short form videos tie back into your long form videos. That way people that see you in the wild, you can always like tie them back into the long form and they'll become more accustomed to your brand and they can become more of a loyal audience for you. You can also implement another strategy where in this platform alone, you can post your long form videos and you can post your shorts, and at the same time, you post to your community and your live stream. That way you can build a deeper connection to people that already knows you and build more of that camaraderie, because when you can call out their name when you're on a live stream, like, oh, thanks Simon for liking my video or liking my live stream, or thanks whoever for joining in and answering some questions, you will instantly build that connection with that specific person and subscriber. So again, YouTube has a lot of different strategies that, depending on your business, depending on your niche, depending on what you're creating, can have a huge impact in terms of how you navigate that platform. Next, we have X/Twitter. So if you know it as X, whether you know it as Twitter, I still call it Twitter sometimes, you know that this is one of the most viral platforms out there. And if you're a great writer and you can write posts in under 280 characters, if you have the free account on X, you can gain a lot of traction here. Now, who is this platform for? I would say that this platform is for someone on the go that just wanted to create a lot of thoughts and post out thoughts with the whole industry. Now, all industries uses X and Twitter, and the way that you can be successful in this platform is by posting more. Some of the most successful people out there in this platform typically post at least 3, 5, or even 7 times a day. Because when you post your opinion or where you are in the world out there on X, they'll distribute that to other people that actually would find that topic interesting as well. Now, a cool strategy to be successful on X, Twitter, is by using the thread strategy. So what that is you can create an attention-grabbing tweet, or X, I guess, and you can create multiple threads within that specific tweet so that you can lead them towards something even bigger. So instead of getting capped by the 280 characters, you can create multiple reply to that specific thread, and you can write as much as you want. A lot of the times you want to be able to get people to actually want to chime in on your opinion as well to make that thing even longer. So X is great to showcase your opinions, showcase your thoughts, even showcase about what you're currently thinking about. And what about LinkedIn? And yes, you might be wondering, LinkedIn is one of the most underrated platforms today, because within LinkedIn, you also have all of the different mediums that you can do. You have audio piece of it, you have the video piece of it, you have written, and also you can do images and post carousels inside of this specific post inside of LinkedIn. And I think one of the most underrated strategy on LinkedIn is being able to build a brand that resonates with a lot of the people in the big corporations. And from a strategy perspective, there could be a couple of reasons on why you want to do this. Number one is you might want to target bigger companies and bigger brands. If those are your customers and your decision makers are inside of LinkedIn, then building a personal brand inside of LinkedIn makes sense. Whether you're a founder or you're a content creator, you're a coach, or anybody in that industry that wants to serve of a bigger corporation, you can use LinkedIn to tap into that whole network. The second thing where LinkedIn is very advantageous is the connection feature. So because LinkedIn is a very private and almost exclusive type of social platform, not only that you can connect with other people, but you can always see who are your second or third degree connections would be. And that might be strategic in a way that whether, again, you want to reach a higher decision maker, maybe other founders in other industries, or anything in that sort, maybe a referral partner. And if you're just a solo creator, maybe one day you want to start connecting with bigger brands, right? A lot of these brands typically have their influencer marketing manager or influencer marketing director inside of LinkedIn. And because you've grown a personal brand inside of LinkedIn, you'll be able to connect with them and seem more credible and be able to connect with those people very easily. Now, let's talk about one of the biggest and probably hottest platforms out there, TikTok. Now, TikTok has been around since around 2018, 2019, but it didn't really blow up until that 2020, 2021 era, where a lot of creators are jumping in and really make the platform 10 times or 1,000 times really bigger than it was. And part of the reason is TikTok revolutionized what we know today as the algorithm. See, back then on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, whenever you follow someone or you subscribe to someone, you're probably going to be served content from those people that you follow. The photos, the videos, the posts, whatever it is, if you follow them, you'll be able to see the posts from those specific people. But TikTok really changed the game because the algorithm that TikTok invented was nothing like any other algorithms that any of these platforms has ever known before. So what did they change? Well, the first thing is they went all in with short form videos. So at the beginning, it was 60 seconds or less. Now you can post longer stuff on there, but the key characteristics is that you don't get to choose what content you get served. That's what the For You page is for. And because of this, the algorithms on TikTok is able to guess what that specific person might like and might not like. So if you ever open up TikTok and you look at the platform, all of those things inside of your For You page are things that the algorithms think that you would like. So how can you use this to your advantage? Well, if you're a creator or a business trying to succeed inside TikTok, the first thing that you got to do is you want to make sure that you post consistently. On average, people on TikTok or creators on TikTok really post about at least 2 to 3 times per day. So consistency and volume wins the game here. And what's awesome is TikTok really values simplicity and authenticity of the actual videos. So you don't have to have the fanciest editing styles and techniques. If anything, the simpler and more connected that you are, the better. And if you're a brand, you might even benefit from using the TikTok Shop feature. There's a lot of different brands that have leveraged TikTok Shop to spread the distribution of their product. That can be its whole separate videos. And what's awesome is if you have a personal brand, you can become affiliates, you can become creators for your favorite brands inside of TikTok Shop, and you can make a lot of money doing this. And how can you be successful on TikTok besides posting the volume game? Well, going back to that foundation, you really got to think about what people are going to be interested in, what kind of demand, seeing what culturally is relevant within your specific niche. Maybe there's a specific song, specific trend, specific dance that you want to be a part of in this mini cultures. And if you think about TikTok as a whole, it's a collection of mini subcultures within a specific niche, right? Let's say you're in a niche of fishing. There are subcultures, maybe fishing on the Everglades, deep sea tuna fishing, for example, right? There's these mini subcultures inside of TikTok, and really knowing what your subcultures really is a part of, what kind of stuff they speak, maybe even trends they have, you can participate in those to start creating brand within TikTok. And what are the pros and cons of using TikTok? Well, the pros is it's one of the easiest platforms to get discovery, because on average, people see about 2,000 different creators on TikTok on a single day. So what that means is you have more chances to show up on other people's platforms, which is awesome. You can get the views, you can get reach, and it'll be a great top of funnel level play. But what are the cons? Well, because people are seeing a lot of different creators and a lot of different companies, a lot of different brands, you can get diluted, which basically means that people don't remember you, right? So that's why the consistency and the volume really makes the difference on TikTok. And if you can create a signature style, signature way that you record that only you can do, again, going back to the only thing that you can do, that would make it even better and make you stand out more on TikTok. And then now for the next platform that we all know and love, Instagram. I'm gonna categorize Instagram and Facebook kind of in the same bucket here. Now, I know they're two different platforms with two different specifics, but for the sake of the video, I'm gonna combine them together because the strategy is pretty similar within Instagram and Facebook. So Facebook is probably one of the oldest, if not the oldest, social media platforms out there. I still had it since 2006 or 2007 when it's like you can play video games on there, and it has changed over the years. And with Instagram, where it was before and where it is now is much, much different. Now, if we can summarize Instagram and Facebook, is these are the platforms to build communities. So they have engineered their platforms for maximum way to build community. So what does that mean? Inside of Instagram or Facebook, you can do things like Instagram Reels, which is a short form video version. It's kind of like a TikTok version inside of Instagram. But also you can post things like stories, which is like a disappearing message every 24 hours. And one of the most significant benefit of using Instagram is the DM feature. So you can actually connect with someone, have private message with them, and even start your own community and what they call a broadcast channel inside of Instagram itself. So there's a lot of different things that you can do here. On Facebook, you can do Facebook groups, and there's a lot of creative strategies that you can do just on this platform alone. And if you want me to dive deeper into that, let me know in the comments so that I can make a separate video on that. But overall, this platform is made for you to build a community. So what does that mean? Some of the best strategies for you to build a personal brand in this platform is tailored towards someone who can actually leverages all the key pieces so that people will stay in the platform and want to use and want to connect with you more. So what does that mean? The KPIs that matter here is things like shares, saves, comments, all the engagement models, because the Instagram algorithm really love engagements. And if your video is very shareable, then it'll make people stay in the platform even longer, and they're gonna reward you even in showing you to more people. So that's a benefit. Now, what I think Instagram can do that most of these platforms can do is actually break down the 3 levels of marketing funnels inside of the platform itself. So if you're not familiar with the marketing funnel, there's a top of funnel, middle funnel, and bottom of funnel. What that basically means is top funnel is people that typically don't know you yet and they just discovered who you are. Middle funnel is for people that already kind of knows you and wants to build more relationship with you. Bottom of the funnel is people who are ready to buy or wanted to do something with you, maybe even like go to an event or whatever it is, right? Whatever your goal is. So what does that look like? Well, by posting things like Instagram Reels, which is a short form video, you can get top of the funnel awareness. They can show this video to hundreds of thousands of people and get people to actually know your brand. But that's not enough. People can just know your brand. They can just like scroll and see your brand, but that's not enough. Let's say you get people to follow you and now you're in the middle funnel piece of the actual marketing funnel. So in this piece, you can do things like posting stories. So posting stories is 24-hour disappearing photo or video. You'll be able to connect with these people even more. Maybe show the behind the scenes of where you currently are, what projects you're working on, maybe even like some like, hey, this is a specific message for you because your stories will be shown to people that already follow you. That's a middle funnel play. And on the bottom of the funnel play where you wanted to ready to make a sale, you can leverage the broadcast channel feature or even the DM feature. When you reach out to them, let's say you sell roofing, you can always reach out to your followers with like, hey, do you live in San Diego? Have you ever thought about, fixing your roofs, whatever, blah, 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 right? The DM feature in the broadcast channel will allow you to connect with these followers that you currently have and already been building. So you can complete the whole marketing funnel inside of the same platform. And that's not the only features that are available to Instagram, and there's a lot of other things that you can do on there, but I would say that's the main one that you wanted to use when it comes to creating a personal brand in this platform. Now, who should pick this platform? In my opinion, if you wanted to create a brand that eventually wanted to sell something to the audience or maybe build a bigger community, and if you want to post a little bit of your behind the scenes on the stories, Instagram could be for you. And the pros and cons of that is on Instagram, on the pro side, you can DM your followers, so you can actually message them and build a relationship with them. You can have the story feature, which is you can connect with your current followers into making deeper connections. And you actually have a short form video feature when it comes to getting discovered and getting new people to know you. And if you implement those 3 things, are big pros of this platform. Now, what is the cons of this platform, right? There's probably debates on like who's currently in this platform. If you are in a specific, more sophisticated niche, let's say you are, in research or biotech, for example, I don't know if your audience will be there. There could be. I'm not saying that you wouldn't, but that's maybe where LinkedIn would come into play, right? But overall, Instagram and Facebook is a good platform to kind of start creating a personal brand on. And a good method to think about which platform should you choose is something that I call the primary and amplifier model. So the primary and amplifier model basically means that you can choose one primary platform and you choose an amplifier platform to support that primary platform. What does that look like? Let's say that you are a dentist and you want to start creating a personal brand in a dentist space. Maybe you want to create tutorials and guided type content about how to get into the dental school, what you need to do when you start your own practice, all of that stuff. That could be your primary content that you do on YouTube, and you post your long form videos, your short form videos, all that stuff. And your amplifier platform could be, let's say, Instagram or TikTok. And you can repost some of those shorts that you created for YouTube Shorts, on Instagram or on TikTok in what I call the repurposing model, which what we'll cover in the next section. So when you choose a primary platform, typically I would ask myself, is this medium is something that I'm good at? Is this medium something that I can excel at and I'm good at, whether it's video or written or whatever? And the second thing is there a huge demand for what kind of content I create? Probably most of the answer is going to be yes. And number 3 is, do they have the functionality that I want in a specific platform? So let's say if I want a DM feature, I probably would want to prioritize Instagram. So Instagram will be my primary platform. If my goal is to be able to be searchable, if I want to be a more searchable person, I would probably go with YouTube because YouTube is one of the biggest search platforms out there, right? So that becomes my primary. And then the second, the amplifier would be whatever that is that you choose to support that method. So by using this primary and amplifier model, you'll be able to capitalize and benefit from in one major platform and have another one supporting the effort behind it. Another example with this, let's say that you are a gardener and you wanted to create content showing how you can create an amazing lawn and amazing garden that people can build in their backyard. Let's say that you are really good at creating videos that you do voiceovers with. So maybe you want to go into TikTok, that as you're making your plants and kind of tending the plants, you can record all that content and you can just voice over your voice, and then you can post that 2 to 3 times a day on TikTok. That becomes your primary platform. Then maybe at the same time, you also wanted to grow your Instagram. So you can have your primary be TikTok and Instagram be your amplifier. You can post the same content on Instagram and also trying to test and see which one performs best and start connecting with your audience there using the DM feature. That way you can get the primary and amplifier model working really well, having 2 platforms serving you at the same time. But you might be asking, but Brandon, that sounds like I'm doing double work. How do I do this without burning out? Well, this is what I call the repurposing method, where you can create pillar assets that you can break down to other pieces of mediums in different platforms. So for example, having a long form video or a live stream inside of things like YouTube can become your pillar asset, because out of a 10-minute video, out of a 20, 30-minute video, whatever it is, you can always pick and choose certain things inside of that video and you can cut it up as shorts that you can post on your amplifier platforms. Now, beyond this, let's say you wanted to go take it the next level, you can use AI tools like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Notebook LM, all of the above, whatever you use, pick your favorite, and you can now create other things such as a blog post, a LinkedIn post, a tweet or X. You can repurpose a lot of these content to fit different formats. That way you can show up on a lot of these other formats. And if you want my favorite prompts for this, just click the link below. I'll put it all on there. You don't need to sign up for anything. You just click the link, because it's a lot of prompts that I use on my own content as well, so you can have that for free. But repurposing is one of the strongest tools that you can do in content so that you can show up anywhere without doing twice the work. So we've learned a lot about the platform itself in here, and I suggest that you rewind back and kind of learn about which platforms would fit you best. Each of them have different knickknacks and different pros and cons, and if you implement the primary and amplifier model, you'll be able to pick a primary platform that you go all in on and have an amplifier platform that will support you in your journey of creating content. So I know what you're thinking. TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, they all look different, but underneath it, the psychology is the same. They're optimizing for the same signal, which is real audience response. To think about it, these algorithms, these views, they're all just humans. And in this next section, I will show you how to think about content so it works across multiple platforms without reinventing the wheel every single time. Because at the end of the day, yes, volume can beat luck, but if you're smarter about it and actually approach it with strategy, you'll be able to actually get 10x the output on top of the volume that you already gonna create. So let's get deeper into the actual content frameworks itself on what actually makes content that goes viral once versus the type of content that actually builds an audience, because there is a difference. I can just go run outside and have somebody record me, maybe take it on my shirt in the middle of the street, and goes viral. It's shocking, maybe it's a little bit weird and controversial, it's funny, and I get virality, millions of views. But does that really achieve the goals that I want to have when it comes to building my brand or my personal brand? Probably won't, right? So we need to understand what is the actual skeleton and the anatomy of what makes content great. Because when you actually understand the psychology inside of every single content, you'll start noticing a pattern. And every great creators know this pattern, because it's a pattern of human psychology, it's a pattern of how we think with our brain, and it's a pattern of why we want to keep watching certain stuff more and more. It's the same pattern that makes you doom scroll on TikTok, on Instagram every single night for about 30 minutes, where you say you're only gonna do it for 5, right? This is the same psychology pattern that a lot of people have researched over the years, taken from a lot of different things, taken from people who built casinos and slot machines, taken from psychologists who studies human behavior, people who studies market and consumer behavior of why people buy certain things. Because as humans, even though there's a lot of different platforms, a lot of different mediums, at the end of the day, we're still human. We're not much different from one another. And honestly, if you know this by heart, this is going to change your whole perspective when it comes to watching content. Because one of the biggest shifts that you can make as a content creator is really understanding the pieces that make people tick and pieces that makes people move. Because if you understand these secret codes, secret switches that you can turn on, you'll be able to be irresistible no matter if you are writing it, no matter if you're doing a video, no matter if you're doing podcast or audio. Because again, psychology is the same in the background and you got to understand it. The first thing that you got to know is hooks. You've probably heard of this term in many different videos before. Hooks this, hooks that, copy this, copy this. But what is a hook, right? Well, if you think about it, a hook is a hook. That's like a thing. It catches the fish. A hook, right? A fishing hook. That's where it's come from. So a hook is typically the beginning of a certain video or a certain format that really is aimed to catch your attention. And this is nothing new. This has been done in ages ago. If you think about all the poetry written by Shakespeare, if you think about the plays that has been written, if you even think about newspapers in the past, they have headlines, right? Headlines is a form of a hook. It takes you about 3 seconds, 3 to 5 seconds to read, and you glance over it and you're like, oh, I want to zoom in into that. I want to read more into that, right? This has been a thing that has been transitioned and evolved from medium to medium to medium, from newspapers to poetry to like songs to now videos to now written blogs to now like emails. It's the fundamental thing that you have to know, which is a hook. So a really famous person that I look up to, David Ogilvy, he's one of the greatest marketers of all time. He's saying, first thing that people see of all of your content, all of your videos, all of your written pieces, the most important part is your hook. It's something that we really got to understand, and it's something that we really have to hone in and be really, really good at, because the rest doesn't matter. If you think about it, if you don't read the first sentence, the rest is not going to matter. If they don't watch the first 3 seconds on a vertical video, on a short, it's not going to matter. If they don't watch the first 5 to 10 seconds on a YouTube video, it's not going to matter. Same thing with podcasts, same thing with emails. Everything relies and starts with the hook. So how does this work, right? Typically, a hook comes in different shapes and sizes for different mediums. If it's a written medium, typically it's the first line, first sentence, the headline. That's the hook. If it's something that makes you feel catchy, makes you feel that you wanted to read more, that's a hook. In a video, let's say it's a short form video, a hook is something that you say, the audio hook, something that you see, the visual hook, and maybe even a text, which is something that you read, which is a written hook, right? There's 3 types of hooks that can happen in a video. This is also why a video is one of the strongest platforms, because you can convey 3 different things, and then boom, that becomes your scroll stopper. On a YouTube video, what does a hook look like? On a YouTube video, it's usually the first 10 seconds. Same thing. The visuals that you have, the text that you put on your YouTube videos, and it's also what you say as a creator. That becomes the hook of your video. And hooks is, I can't emphasize enough how important it is to really spend time on the hook. And there's a couple of different ways that you can do this efficiently. Now, the first question we get to ask is, what makes a good hook? Now, a good hook is typically the one that makes you think about something. It makes you have an emotional reaction, whether it's something that hurts you, like something makes you feel joyful. Whoa, that's a good feel good news, right? Makes you feel suspenseful, like, oh, what's gonna happen next? Maybe things that makes you a bit scared. There's a reason why traditional media and news channels always use something that's negative to scare you, right? Because fear works well as a hook. Personally, don't agree with it to use all the time, but it does work. If I tell you that if you don't watch this video, you're literally not going to have a life and your career will be over in a second, there's fear. And you probably want to stay around and watch the video that I'm going to say. But there's also other different types of hooks that you can use and different formats of it so that you can leverage all different aspects of human emotions. Now, I have a whole list of 100 different hooks that I've proven to go viral. If you want that, click the link in the description. It's free. Get it. And you can use it for all your content. But the point is, typically in a good hook, it has something called a curiosity loop. So typically, it opens a curiosity loop, which basically means in your brain, after you reading a certain piece, after you hearing a certain piece, or after you seeing a certain piece, your brain stops and asks, whoa, this is new. What is happening? Like, I want to know something, or I feel a certain way, we should watch it, we should watch out. And even though it only buys you 2 to 3 seconds, that's still 2 to 3 seconds that they otherwise wouldn't have watched if you don't have a good hook. So that's why it's super duper important to really get a great hook in the first type of videos. If you're a book reader and you wanted to read a really great book about this, it's called The Copywriting Handbook. It's by Joseph Sugarman, one of the greatest marketers out there. I love that book. It teaches you how to write really great hooks. But the essence of it and the psychology of it is you got to make people want to watch. You got to make people ask themselves, whoa, this is something that I never thought about before. This is something random, even something weird and random, right? Like, whoa, like I feel disgusted or I feel weird, or that's why ASMR videos work, right? It's like, whoa, I feel a certain, this quasi feeling, right? If I'm like watching this thing. So that's the reason why those kind of videos work. But if you nail down the hook, you'll nail down everything else. And how do I write a good hook? Well, there's a lot of different ways you can do this, but here's my favorite way. My favorite way of writing a hook is actually not the start, because a lot of the times I don't even know what the video is going to be about. And the hook typically doesn't do any justice if I'm trying to guess what the hook is going to be before I even know what the content is going to be about. The first thing that I do is I like to write out the content first, the outlines or even the scripts for the videos or for whatever, the written post on LinkedIn, whatever that is. Once I have a whole list of the bullet points and all the things that I want to talk about, then I think about what kind of hooks fit best with this specific video or written piece or whatever. Because once you know the content of what you're going to talk about, now you can reverse engineer it of what kind of open loops can I create that relates to this video? What kind of things can I say that would make people want to stay until the end? And those looks different depending on the different mediums, but the core fundamental piece of it is the same. Like, okay, here's what I'm going to talk about. Here's what I'm going to share with the world. How can I make people want to watch it till the end? That's the first question you should ask when it comes to the hook. And I recommend spending 70% of your time on the hook. So spend time writing and thinking about how you're going to intro the hook for any of your content pieces. Now, the best first thing that you can do is writing the outlines. How do you actually do that? Well, there's two different ways that you can go about this. And I've done both, and I've done both for a lot of our clients. The first way is to fully script things word for word. And the second thing is to do off the cuff, or something that I call like off the bullet points. And let me explain to you the benefits, pros and cons of the two, and how you can do it properly. Now, before I do that, if you notice, what is the most important skill set to actually learn when it comes to content creation? Now, you might think that it's talking about the camera, you might think that it's actually like setting up the gear, but it's actually writing. Because the way that you can communicate your ideas is actually one of the most important things you can do in content. And let me tell you why in this section. So when you're scripting a piece of content, there's two different ways you can do it: scripting word for word or bullet points. And kind of like how your 5th grade teacher always teaches you on how to write essays, you always want to start with the body of framework. Typically on a short form video, you want to start with 3 key points. You don't want to talk about 10 different things. You want to just keep it to one single point, broken down in 3 different bullet points. Why 3? Well, 3 is actually how our brain thinks and how our brain likes to categorize things. We do it in multiples of 3 because it actually fulfills the loop that our brain really wants to fulfill. Okay? So if you're writing short form videos, have one main topic with 3 bullet points of why that topic is important or whatever it is that you want to do. If you want to write a long form video, you can think about this as one main point, 3 things, one main point, 3 things, one main point, 3 bullet points, and you can repeat that however long your video is going to be. Now, what are the benefits for scripting versus off the cuff? Well, the benefit of scripting is kind of how it is. You can put on a teleprompter and you can just keep reading over and over and over again and make sure that you say every single word perfectly. The pros of that is you can make sure that you say everything you wanted to say, and it's a pretty easy thing to do, in my opinion. The cons of that is, number one, making it sound authentic, because typically reading a teleprompter, it's its own skill, and you got to get used to it a little bit. I think more importantly, typically the way you write needs to match the way you speak, because sometimes the way you write is a little bit different than how you actually see things in person. And that's where the teleprompter sometimes kind of get a little bit of a, oh, I didn't know that I was supposed to break the sentence off a little bit because there was too much breathing noise, right? Or too much breathing room over there. I need to shorten it up. Or maybe I used to go too fast, so teleprompter needs to be a bit faster. So I've done both. And I think scripting really works when you have content that maybe you're not as familiar with, or maybe things that you need certain concrete data that you need to say in the actual videos. That's where it becomes useful. Or if you have a preference for a specific narrative style that you really wanted to convey, and you have trained yourself to be able to speak in front of teleprompter really well, That way you sound more human. That's where scripting word for word would make more sense. But then where does the off the cuff really makes a difference? Well, in my opinion, if you're really good at your topic and you want to talk about that topic without even limiting yourself in terms of a specific type of constraint, off the cuff is much better. As long as you have like bullet points of what you want to talk about. Like right now in this whole course, I'm doing a bullet points off the cuff type of videos. There's a couple of bullet points that I put over there, and I'm just going through the bullet points and talking on my mind about what I think would be best because I know this piece and I know how to communicate this really easily. There are some videos, like some of our other videos, where I break down certain big names out there. I need to get certain type of facts and figures right that I write out word for word. That way I really know about the specific details. I don't get it wrong. And I think that's important because when I'm reporting, I want to make sure I'm as accurate as possible. So depending on the type of videos, the type of mediums that you do, you probably would choose one or the other. Or you can always do a hybrid where a YouTube video can have a scripted intro, and for the rest of the body, you can have it bullet pointed. And for every transition sentences, you can have a transition script so you can make sure that you say that. So there's a lot of different ways that you do that. And that's specific for long form videos. For short form videos, because it's so short, you might be able to even like crush it in just bullet points. You don't have to even talk about it because you're just talking about one specific thing, right? Let's say you are a car dealership and you want to talk about how you can change your oil, right? And you want to make a 60-second short video about it. You can just say on the hook, like, knowing this trick can save you $100 the next time you change oil. Here's how you're supposed to do this, how you're supposed to do that, and how you're supposed to do this. Boom, one video right there done. And you can go ahead and post that on the short form videos. So depending on the medium and the format, you really got to think about how you're going to script it and how you're going to make sure that the story flow. And one pro tip that I recommend you do is once you have these scripts, or whether it's word for word or off the cuff, I would say practice it. Practice talking about it in front of the camera, in front of the mirror. That way you can start hearing yourself and what you wanted to say, how your tonality should be, because your tonality is actually a lot more important than what it is that you're trying to say. Obviously, the content needs to be fire, because if the content's not fire, then people are gonna click away. But at the same time, if you can be more engaging, raise your tones, ups and downs as you're presenting it, that will make things very interesting and makes people wanna watch it a little bit more. Next, let's talk about presentation and packaging, because on some formats, it matters a lot more, and on some formats, matters a lot less. So thumbnails and titles. Why is this important? Well, if you're doing a long form video, like a YouTube, this is gonna be very, very important for you. But if you're doing anything like written or things like LinkedIn posts or things like Instagram, even Reels, not really that important when it comes to the thumbnails, but I'll touch that lightly. If you're posting on Instagram or TikTok, typically your thumbnail should just be a picture of your text hook. Whatever the text hook is gonna be, tell us about what the video is gonna be, makes people wanna click. And the reason why it's not that important is because people rarely go to your specific channel to watch a specific video. Not saying that it doesn't happen, but it does happen. But a lot of people take too much time to create the amazing thumbnails on this TikTok, on this Instagram, that to me doesn't really matter. So instead, put all that effort into the thumbnails and title that you create on YouTube. So why does this matter on YouTube? Well, if you rewind a couple of steps back and you think about how the YouTube algorithm works, remember, it's kind of like Netflix. Right? And if you're skipping around, I'm catching you right now, go back and kind of watch that part of the video. And if you think about Netflix, you have a picture, a thumbnail of what that TV series or what that movie is going to be. When you scroll over it, you have a little bit of a start, a little trailer, right? And there's a title of the movie itself. Now on YouTube, you gotta treat it the same way. And what makes a clickable thumbnail and what makes a clickable title? The easiest way to think about this is to look at newspapers, because they figured this out many ages ago. Maybe even when the dinosaurs were still alive, right? They figured this thing out, which basically your title is pretty much your headline to your video. And your headline to your video needs to be catchy, raise curiosity. Again, the psychology is still the same. You gotta create some sort of anticipation of like, why should I watch this? And what kind of benefit should I gain? Or like, am I gonna save money? Am I gonna save my future? Am I going to learn something? Am I going to be entertained, right? What is the title promise? Typically, there's some sort of promise inside of the title. And one of the greatest ways to do that is to learn from newspapers' headlines. Thumbnails, it kind of acts the same way. Think about back then, newspapers have a picture and an image. Netflix also have the image, right? Some of the best thumbnails out there is something that you can find very click-worthy And one way to research this is to look at other mediums like Netflix to really figure out what people are actually doing that works well. Because we all know that Netflix spends a lot of money when it comes to designing titles and thumbnails for their movies. So let's take some of that research and see what we can apply into our own videos. So that's why it's one of the most underrated strategy when it comes to doing that. The thing about YouTube is that if you're creating content that is so good, but people don't click on it, too bad, they're not gonna watch it. Not even your hook matters at that point, right? So that's why when you're creating long form videos on YouTube, your thumbnails and your titles is one of the most important things that you can do. And don't hear it from me, right? There's a lot of videos out there, and that can link down below, of other people like Mr. Beast or other people like Colin and Samir that talks about what makes a good thumbnail and titles if you wanted to see a little bit more about the psychology of titles and thumbnails. But at the end of the day, really, how can we create curiosity and make people want to click the video? But now you might be wondering, Brandon, this is a lot of work. Is all of my day 24/7 just shooting videos and planning for videos and doing all this stuff? Actually, not really. I usually batch my content in about 2 days a month, maybe even 3 sometimes. And let me tell you how exactly you can do this too. Now, batch content creation is something that I really love, especially for somebody that's busy, somebody that, if you're a business owner, and it's also a great use of your time. But it all starts with great planning. And all of this video so far, what you've been doing is planning and preparing, which is awesome. Because if you follow the exact step-to-step that I laid out here, you should be pretty prepared at this point, and you're about to ready to go shoot. Now, there's a couple of different ways how people do this, and I'm saying that there's no one correct way, but rather you gotta find a way that works for you and your team on how you wanna create content. One of the things that we do for myself and my clients is that we batch record it, which means that in that 1 day or 2 days, we record a bunch of different content that then can be repurposed and posted and distributed over a period of time. So let's say today, I am batching this full course, and I'm also recording a couple other YouTube videos. So now 3 weeks of YouTube, because I post once a week, is going to be ready, and they're going to be, I don't have to shoot it again. I can go ahead and do other things. And if you do this correctly, you'll be able to do this with your shorts, with your LinkedIn posts, anything. And that's really how you can scale up your production and just really increasing the output. So let me tell you exactly how you can do this. It all starts with the planning. What I recommend you do is block out 1 day, 4 to 5 hours of your week, of your month, whatever works for you, to just do planning and content ideation research. So what that means is 4 to 5 hours, log in and research all the ideas that you can think about, and look at your competitors, write down the different ideas that you think you can do well on, and really think about what kind of stuff that you can make that will resonate with your brand. Now, if you already done that beforehand, you already have the foundation, it'll be easy. Again, it's not that you're running out of ideas. If anything, there's too many ideas out there in the world. I can make a video on how they can make these white walls called psych walls. I can make videos about my setup, but there's only too little time to be able to do all of this. So you have to pick and filter what kind of videos you need to create. If you've done exactly what we've done so far, you should be able to filter it pretty easily. After you spend that 4 to 5 hours planning the content ideas, picking what you wanted to talk about, maybe even some shorts, some long forms, whatever that is, in that same time frame, you can also spend some time outlining and scripting your videos. So you can use your LLM's worth of choice to help you research this, right? ChatGPT, Claude, whatever, to help you research the ideas. I would not, however, tell it to script my whole video. I would not do that, because typically the video is pretty bad that it comes out with, and it doesn't have any human emotion, human touch to any of the videos. Surprise why? Because it's a friggin' robot, right? Where I think AI could really fit into this thing is to help you research, to help you create transition sentences. Things like that, I think AI is really great at. And if you have a general idea of what the structure of the video would be, what I would do is I would write down the specific type of outline of videos, and I will tell AI, hey, how can I expand this a little bit more to make it more valuable for my audience? And it'll come up with more ideas, right? And I can pick and choose. How do I transition this key point to the next key point, okay? And I can even ask it, what are some relevant examples from today that I can add to this? Please research this, or research this topic, right? It'll have the deep research capability to help you do this, but caveat, always double check the work, because a lot of these AI be lying to you. A lot of them are like good liars, right? So you don't want that. So you wanna make sure all the research, all the planning is checked by a human before you actually do that. And last but not least, I always recommend writing the hook yourself. Pick from the hook list that I have down below, or even write it yourself first and don't let AI write that for you because sometimes it's not good. Let me just tell you that right now. I haven't seen AI that writes good hooks. All the times that I have to do this for all my clients, I still have to do it manually. I have a person checking this, and honestly, it's a thing. Don't just let AI write your hook for you. So now that you have 1 day plan to do all the planning, what I want you to do then, maybe the next day or a couple days after that or the next week, whatever works for your schedule, block another 5 to 6 hours out of your day to just create the content, right? So batch produce the content. That's what batching really is, kind of like batching cookies, right? So when you're batching content, the reason why you want to have a separate day is that typically, if you're doing it right, I always get tired after researching a bunch of ideas. Your brain is doing active creative work, thinking, all this stuff. And hey, credit to you if you can shoot right after that and just like batch it all out. But for most people, including myself, I typically do that on the next day. That way I can solely focus. You come into the set, you know exactly what you want to talk about. And that's one of the biggest lessons that a lot of personal brands do is that they come, they hire the videographers, they hire the studio, whatever it is, and then boom, they're sitting here and they're like, what do you want to talk about? I don't know. What do you want to talk about? That's the biggest waste of time. So when you come into the set, you already know exactly what videos, how many videos you're going to do, whether or not you are prepped for it, whether or not you want to do it word for word using a teleprompter. You already have a plan coming in forward. So make sure you do that when it comes to batching your content. And you can do this every 2 weeks. You can do this every month. You can even do this every quarter, depending on where you are. And you can always, if you plan it out right strategically, you can create a bunch of evergreen content that can be distributed over the whole quarters of time span. Now, let's go into what you need to do on your shoot day. Okay, so on your shoot day, when you're batch recording content, there's a couple of different things. Now, you don't have to have all these setups. You don't have to have like professional cameras, lights, and studios. And honestly, you don't need to. If you're just starting out, the most simpler setup actually is better. So what does that mean? Honestly, if you have a smartphone, have an iPhone, or we don't talk about the name, but Android, some of them could work, right? And so if you have a good filming equipment like an iPhone and have some sort of microphone, I'll say that's the two things that are most important because you can always do things like recording in front of a window. One thing you got to make sure is you don't want to stand where the light is behind you. You want to make sure the light is coming from the front of you. That's how you're going to make yourself look good. When you're having an iPhone, you have a microphone, you can stand in front of the window and record that way. Another option will be to record maybe inside of your car. Fun fact, your car is actually one of the greatest, most noise-treated room out there because there's years of engineers and researchers that make sure that when you're driving, it doesn't sound like loud. If you don't have any spots, go inside of your car and you can actually, it's a popular format where you just record your videos inside of your car. Now, if you have a little bit more budget, let's say you're a business, I always recommend to outsource your filming. And here's the reason why. Whether you have your own team or you're hiring a production team, the reason is the more time that you spend setting up all of the tools and all of that stuff, it's a brain space that you have that's been given away to do all these things. Whereas your brain space as the creator should always be about how to deliver the best content. Saving your mind space on like what you can do tonality-wise, what transitions, all that stuff to make sure you're ready. If you have a little bit of budget, I always recommend to hire your production team or also hiring your editing. But let's say you don't have a budget to edit your videos. Well, what can you do? Well, what you can do is you can use easier tools like CapCut, iMovie, Premiere Pro. I think editing is one of those things where you have to kind of get used to. And trust me, I have to self-taught myself how to edit starting on iMovie and then Final Cut Pro and Premiere Pro. So I get it. It's hard. It's not easy. But that's why it's one of those things where if you start getting a little bit of budget, it might be wise to hire somebody to edit your videos for you, whether hiring it locally, internationally. I have another video on how you can hire those kind of editors. But a lot of the things that you do when you're presenting and filming, you want to put all your effort into that. So if you are starting out, make sure you just focus on getting a decent light, record in front of the window or inside of a car, have a microphone and just chat, just talk. Practice your talking, practice your storytelling, because that's what's gonna make the difference. Now, congratulations. You've done all of that stuff. You kind of understand batching. You know the psychology behind what makes a video, you know the psychology behind what makes a video work very well. How do you stick to it? Well, here's a tip. All of the biggest creators in any industry, whether you're a brand or you're a personal brand, look at Gary Vee, Mr. Beast, Ryan Trahan, Eric, name everything, right? Name everyone. One of the things that you got to do is you have to be consistent. Setting up realistic, consistent schedule is one of the places where a lot of creators fall apart. Because if you can't follow a specific schedule, typically you're probably going to just burn out and you're not going to be able to do this consistently. Because content is a long game. Brand is a long game. So you got to really make sure that you're in it to win it. So what can you use to do this? In the beginning, when you already pick your platform, pick a consistent time or a consistent amount of content that you can follow. If you don't have all the equipment and all that, try to post twice a week, maybe 3 times a week, maybe 5 times a week, and starting to actually gradually improve it more and more. And you're gonna treat it like you're serious about it, right? When you're building a brand, building a community, building a personal brand, you have to treat it like you're serious about it. So think about how often do you have to go to the gym to be healthy, right? If I go to the gym once a week and expect myself to look really good, that's not realistic. You gotta treat this like a real thing. You gotta treat it like you're serious about it. So if you're doing long form videos, typically I recommend starting with at least 1 video every 2 weeks. Even better if you can do 2 videos every week, which is like next level, right? But depending on where you are in your level, be realistic and stick to a schedule that you'll actually follow. That's the key. Schedule that you actually follow. That way you'll be able to stay consistent and you include it in your calendar. I'm a big calendar person. If you're a big schedule person, I always block out time. Back then when I was doing it all solo, I always block out time in my week of like when I'm gonna create content. And when I used to post all myself, I used to block off a time every single day where I post a video from 4:30 p.m. to 5 p.m. I block off that 30 minutes where I post every single day. And I did that for a whole year in 2023. So you gotta be serious about wanting to grow it because most people just say that they do, they get to this level and they're like, boom, they fall off and they don't post anymore, okay? So a couple of things that we learned in this module. We learned about the psychology behind what makes things actually worth watching. We learn about hooks. We learn about the actual scripting piece of it, of what makes a video interesting. We learn about the different ways that you can script a video. And most importantly, we learn about how to actually batch your content. Because when you actually batch your content correctly, you can create months of content from just 1 day of shooting, or maybe even 2 days of shooting. And we've done that with a lot of clients out there. We have clients that we shoot once a month for, we have clients that we shoot once a quarter for, and we have clients that shoot every 6 weeks. Depending on their schedule and their rhythm and where they are availability-wise, we create a batching schedule that works best for you. So if you wanna learn more about how to work with us, click the link below. But if not, learn the specific cadence that you can actually follow so you can actually grow your brand over time instead of doing it in short bursts. Now, views alone do not build a brand. You need a whole system that turns attention into trust and eventually into what we all love, money, right? And in this next module, I will show you how short form and long form can work together so that you're not just going viral, but you're actually growing your brand, having actual influence, and growing money and growing your revenue at the same time. So talking about consistency, one of the things that I always tell people is that you need to understand the growth equation to be able to succeed at creating a personal brand. Now, the growth equation is something that we've used over hundreds of our clients. I've done it to my own content. And this is the equation that a lot of big creators and big personal brands understands to a T so that they know how to build their brand as a whole. And this equation is actually something that's actually responsible into growth over time. And all of a sudden, it looks like you're just an overnight success. And what is this equation? Well, this equation is actually 3 things. Consistency times distribution equals quality. And let me tell you about it. You've probably heard of the famous saying that says quality beats quantity. But in the game of content, it actually would be the opposite. Something that I like to say is quantity breeds quality. And there's actually research of this. There's a Stanford research on 2 different groups. Group A was tasked to build 1 amazing clay pot in a certain amount of time, let's say 24 hours. I don't know the exact time, let's say 24 hours. Group B is tasked to build as many clay pots as possible. And at the end of those 24 hours, they will judge who can create the best pots. And I might be butchering the details here, so bear with me, but the key concept is the same. After the 24 hours, the researchers take a look of, is it Group A or Group B that was able to make a really great pot? And if you know this answer already, comment below what the answer would be. But it's actually Group B that was able to make as many pots as possible to end up making the more beautiful pots. Now, the details, I might be butchering that details, but the key is the same. The more that you do certain things repetitively, you'll be able to actually become better and better at that specific skill set. And that consistency eventually will get you to get into the repetition and to know exactly what you can improve on. The more that you do videos, the more that you see, oh, this video got slightly higher views. And that means the hook is really good. Let me just try out the hook again. Or maybe let me try out the topics again. For example, one of my videos, the genius behind Bad Bunny's brand, was performing really well. I'm like, oh, okay, that performed 100 times better than most of my videos. Let me just redo them again, and did the genius behind John Summit's brand. I was testing the topics and testing the titles, and it worked again. It became 14,000 views. The more consistent that I am at posting the content, the more that you have data of what actually works and what actually doesn't work. And when you multiply that with distribution, meaning posting it on one primary platform and an amplifier platform, and eventually on all the different platforms, you'll be able to see very quickly on what type of contents perform well. We've had situations where some of our clients have a video that after the first 30 days or 90 days of working with us got 1.7 million views on shorts. It happens both on Instagram and on TikTok. And we wonder, okay, what's the similarities here? Well, we look at the hook and then we look at the topic, and what if we remake this again? And guess what? That video that we kind of remake that video into turns out to be a 2.4 million views video. So there's a lesson in being able to be consistent and multiplying that with different distribution so that you can test out what type of things that would work in the market. And that's how you're gonna get quality content over time. Think about the growth equation the next time someone tells you, oh, you're posting too much. Oh, you're not doing this properly. The more you do certain things, the better that you'll get at it and the better quality of content you'll actually come out with. Another added benefit of actually planning things before you actually shoot is actually making you more searchable. Now, this is not an SEO course or a search engine optimization course, and that might happen in the future, but a lot of creators need to also understand that when you're building a personal brand, it also matters on not only where you appear in the platforms, but where do you appear off the platform. Now think about it, right? If all of a sudden you're building a platform on Instagram and boom, Mark Zuckerberg just said, no more Instagram, bye-bye, what are you gonna do? You have no say in it. This actually happened. Like think about Sora 2. If you know Sora, the platform that's made by OpenAI, there were some people that are like, oh, Sora is gonna be the newest big thing. Yeah, and they're like investing a lot of time into it. All of a sudden, actually, we're losing money. We already got all your data, so bye, we're gonna cut it. We don't care. Those creators that spend all those time, right? Like they're not really building a brand and their brand just disappeared in a matter of a blink of an eye. So what you also need to understand is how your content ties to another larger piece of your brand, including yourself. So being in the marketing space, I've had a lot of friends in the PR space, which is in the PR space, a lot of people always think about who is your owned audience, right? Own audience is just the audience that you actually own and you have ability to contact them directly. For example, if you're making a video that is searchable on Google and searchable on other platforms, let's say somebody searches on how to set up a teleprompter. If your video shows up first, that's a great indicator that your video is actually hitting well for that specific audience, if that's what you're intending to do. And that all will come back to the titles, the tags, the descriptions of the videos that you write on your captions, on your YouTube videos. That's where your SEO is going to really matter. Another good test of this is actually when you go on Google, go into an incognito page and then Google your own name. So if you were to Google my name, Brandon Fortino, see for yourself what would come up with. My content probably on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on YouTube, and that's how you're gonna know that you built an actual brand beyond the platforms. Another level of this is when you're able to actually get information of your actual followers. So instead of them being just followers, maybe you ask them for their emails or contacts. That's when you're gonna be able to totally own the specific audience that you have. Which leads me to the next point, which is communities and comments. And those two things are some of the things that you can use as a growth lever in your content. Now, if your primary platform is something like YouTube or Instagram, where community is a huge part of it, you're actually in luck because it's actually another growth lever that you can actually pull if you wanted to engage with your community more. So on YouTube, you can have community posts where whenever you post a new video, you can always post about that video and really add some kind of texture and add some kind of personality to your channel. A lot of creators also use the community feature to be able to communicate with their audience, maybe asking about what video ideas you should make next, All of this is just to be able to connect with your community and bring them into the journey. A lot of people think that building a personal brand is all about you. It's all about me, 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 me. But it's also a two-way street with your audience too, because your audience will have some sort of expectations of what kind of content you create. And you at the same time want to make something that you're passionate about, that you're authentic about. But at the same time, you also want to make sure that you take care of them as well, right? It's a win-win situation. And if you have Instagram or any other platform, usually a lot of things that you can do, creating a broadcast channel, you can also create some sort of Facebook groups, a lot of different things you can do to really create that community. If you want to take them off the platforms, remember having your own audience, you can always create your own community. Things like High Level, on things like School, there's a lot of different community platforms where you can own your actual community free, or you can even charge them for it depending on your goal. Now, another growth lever that you can always use is your comments. So a lot of people always think like, oh my God, what if my video don't have any comments? Well, what's awesome is you can be the first comment. Now, comments is actually one of the underutilized growth levers out there, because if nobody else comments, you can comment. You can be the first comment. And to use this strategically, let's say on a YouTube video, you can always be the first comment, which is, I call this the first comment strategy, where you can lead them towards any link. Let's say like, hey, if you want to learn more, you want to join our community, click the link here. Or if you want to check out our latest stuff, or you want to join our in-person event, join here, right? Your first comment can also be used as a way to attract more conversation. Let me know what you think. Do you agree on this or not? And you can always pin your comment if that video go viral, right? That way you can always be on the top and it actually be the first thing that people see. If you're creating your personal brand, always think about all these features as levers of what are my goals and how can I pull the right levers to achieve my goals. This is why it's very important to lay out the foundation in the beginning. That way you exactly know what path that you're on, what challenges and what mission you're a part of, and how you can succeed and conquer that journey. One of the most underutilized levers that you can also do is collaborations. So one of the coolest things in a lot of platforms that has been going on recently is you can collaborate with other communities or other creators. Now on Instagram, you can use the tag feature, you can use the tag collaborator feature, and that way you can collaborate. And one of the awesome part about that is if you have another creator friends or people with a bigger influence, bigger following than you can always collaborate with them so that your content will be shown to both of those audience. Some of my favorite YouTubers, like Johnny Harris, collaborates with his other channels so that his videos can be shown to other audiences, and those videos can also be shown into his audiences. This is one of the strongest levers you can use right now. At the beginning, when I was growing my Instagram, I used to do this a lot. I would go to conferences and I would literally ask people questions, and later on, I get their Instagram and collaborate with them. That's how I was able to build a lot of my following in the beginning, and it's one of the most underrated things that you can do. So if you play it correctly, you can use YouTube and Instagram to be able to do this, and I think some other platforms allow you to do that as well, and it'd be one of the coolest places you can do. Now, one of the things that people always ask is, okay, now we've created the content, we distributed it. What about the ROI, Brandon? What is the metric I'm looking at here? Well, there's a couple of different metrics, and each platform has its own detail and specific metrics that you should watch out for. But on the overall higher level perspective of things, there's a couple of things that you need to know. If you're going in on long form videos on YouTube, there's two metrics that you need to know. Number one is your CTR, and number two is AVD. CTR stands for click-through rates, and AVD stands for average view duration. CTR is basically how clickable is your videos. It's going to be indicated by your thumbnails and also your titles. Typically, if you have a CTR of 4 to 5 to 6%, that is average. Anything above 6% is great. Anything under 4 is typically a bad CTR. So that means that if you have a bad CTR, what you can do is you can always test different thumbnails, test different designs, and also test different titles so that you can be successful on YouTube. The second metric is AVD, which is average view duration. This is the part that I really love, because average view duration shows how many of the audience actually watches your video. If you have an average view duration of 34%, it means that people watches your video 34% of the way. So after about 34%, that's where people will drop off. Now, on average, people watch about like 35 to about 60%. That's the average rate. Anything above 60%, over 70%, that's really, really good. And anything below 30% is typically pretty bad. And you want to just see on YouTube, where do people drop off? And YouTube is really awesome because it gives you all this data. And if you know your average view duration, a couple of things that you can consider changing is the pacing of your video. Maybe at certain parts, you're a bit exaggerating on certain words, or maybe you are having parts where it gets boring. So that's where you wanted to take a look at that. Maybe also people don't care about certain parts. Maybe you are just, blabbering about something and people just don't really care. People skip around it. That's usually a common one too. Typically, you can see a graph where people rewinded your videos a couple of times. So maybe if you show some sort of graphic and people wanted to see it, people would pause, rewind it. That's a good sign, and YouTube really loves that. So in average view duration, it can really tell the behavior of the audience in your video. Mr. Beast has said that he's watched and learned his own average view duration for many, many hours, many, many days in the beginning of his career. He literally nailed down every single thing, from this part of the video is getting dark, maybe the voice cracked, maybe the piece of the content doesn't make sense, maybe he uses big words, right? You gotta really know where people drop off and what the reason of it if you want to be able to fix that. So that's on the YouTube side. What about on TikTok? And what about on Instagram and the other platforms? Well, if you're dealing with short form videos, the one thing that we always gotta look for is the average view duration. So the platforms call this a little bit differently. The retention is what the platforms really care about when it comes to short form video. So if you're on Instagram or if you're on TikTok and you see your retention graph, you can see probably a graph going down like this. Or maybe it's a little bit flatter. Typically, by understanding that graph, you can look at where do people drop off in a video. If they drop off very heavy in the beginning, that means they're dropping off in your hook. That means you need to have a better hook, whether it's a better visual hook, a better text hook, or a better audio hook that you save. All of those things could contribute to that. Now, if they drop off after a certain video, maybe video is not relevant anymore. Maybe you switch topics, right? So you gotta be able to think about that as you're looking at the retention graph in the video itself. So those are the metrics that matters the most when it comes to these platforms. Now, obviously, there's a lot more metrics that you can watch out for, but at a higher level, if you can master those two, click-through rate and average view duration, everything else will solve itself. Because that really means that people are clicking on your video and people are watching. And if people are watching, people are spending time with you. And if people are spending time with you, that means people are building affinity, people are building a relationship with you and your brand. And that's how you're gonna build a personal brand. So in this module, you'll learn a lot about the growth equation and what it really takes to actually take it to the next level. Now, if you're just creating content as a hobby, this is probably not relevant for you. And this whole course probably, I don't know why you made it this far. But if you actually made it this far, you're actually serious about growing your personal brand. And if you're serious about growing your personal brand, you gotta treat it like an actual thing. You gotta be a creator, really think about all these different things, read your analytics, and what you can do is you can start understanding the different type of growth levers that you can pick and you can pull depending on which platform and which situation you're in. And when you understand the analytics and you understand the consistency part of it, and you also understand how to actually build this lever that you can pull at any point, that's how you're truly gonna be unstoppable when it comes to content. That's how you're gonna create an engine. And in this next section, we're gonna talk about everything monetization and how you can actually bring your brand into something that can generate you income, or if you have a business, generate you revenue and even clicks, bookings, everything that you want when it comes to getting an ROI. So when thinking about monetization, when it comes to your personal brand, there's a lot of different ways that you can actually do this. And a lot of the big creators actually understand how to navigate through the monetization ladder. And let's start breaking down the monetization ladder piece by piece so that you can have a better understanding of how do these big creators actually make money. And the strategy is actually not what people might think, because you might think it's all coming from the views, but it's actually something way bigger than that. So what is the monetization ladder? Well, it's a piece-by-piece growth framework of what you can follow as you're growing your personal brand. On the lowest totem pole of this ladder is your views and getting paid from the actual platforms. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're really good at generating views and you're really good at getting people to come to your page and your channel, this can be a pretty good level of income when it comes to your personal brand. But most of the time, this is going to be your lowest paying revenue generation, because the platforms, to be fair, don't really pay that much. And depending on which platform that you're in, you can probably get from a couple of cents to maybe a couple of $1,000s, but nothing really gonna be life-changing from just views alone. Which brings us to the second level of the ladder, which is brand deals and sponsorships. Now, this is where things get a little bit interesting. If you have a personal brand and you are starting to gain attraction and get a little bit of motion and growth, and you even start having your own community, whether it's online or in person, this is where sponsorship starts to unlock for you in brand deals. And let me tell you how this works. First thing is inbound. The second thing is from outbound. So inbound, something that we all know, typically you get approached by a specific brand, whether it's in your email, in your DM, and they would basically create you a specific type of offer, a certain amount of posts and a certain amount of shoutouts, and you'll get a piece of money for those posts. Basically, you're selling the trust of your audience for you so that you can sell them a product that is not even your product. You're gonna want to do this carefully because typically sponsorship and brand deals, if they have a bad reputation or if it doesn't really align with what your brand stands for, remember the foundation that we established on the first module, if it doesn't align with that, it could feel a little bit off with your audience. So you're really gonna know who's actually sponsoring the video or whatever content you have and whether or not it's aligned with your audience. Now, the second way that you can do this is you can do an outbound way of getting brand deals. So the way it works is, remember LinkedIn? Our old buddy LinkedIn, right? When you go to LinkedIn, you can always look for people with a title of influencer marketing managers, influencer marketing directors, maybe even influencer marketing coordinators. Any of those type of roles and titles, you can reach out to them and see if they're open or willing to actually work with you and your brand. And you want to make sure this is professional because from their perspective, they look at all creators and typically there's a big risk within creators, especially if they're newer, because a lot of creators could say things and they're actually not deliver. So you gotta come in with the best foot forward. Connect with them on LinkedIn, send them an email, an introduction, who you are, what type of content you do, what type of community that you have, and why it would make sense for their brand to actually sponsor you. Now, a good practice of this is you can have a top 100 list of brands and you can just reach out to them and make sure you're on their radar. Some of them have specific creator groups that they're already working with. So you can always ask how to be inside of that influencer or creator group from that specific brand. That's how you do sponsorships and brand deals. And on the next level of the ladder is where you can find digital products. Now, digital products can mean a lot of things. It can be anything from templates, from guides, or even all the way to mini courses and memberships. Nowadays, there's a lot of digital products that you can do. And depending on your level of business savviness, you can go from easy to pretty difficult, right? When you're creating a template for something, let's say you make videos about photo editing and you wanna sell templates like photo filters on Adobe Photoshop or Adobe Lightroom. And you wanna sell those templates to the internet. The pros and cons of having a digital product is that number one, you have to make the product. So you got to know how to create those products. And number two is typically you have to advertise those products as well. So in the brand sponsorship model, you're just basically borrowing trust from your audience and then telling them, hey, buy this product that I don't even know and I don't even make, but I'm getting paid for it. And in digital product, it's a reflection of you and your brand. So whether it's a mini course, it's a membership, templates, guides, maybe even some sort of e-products, things like ebooks, stuff like that, it'll be a representation of you. You gotta think about this in the back of your head of whether or not this is something that is worth selling. Is there a demand for it? Does your community ask for it? And one of the best ways to know that is to just survey them. Hey, what would be useful for you guys? And you can make a video, you can make an Instagram story, you can even make, whatever it is, right? You can ask them, hey, what would be useful for you and what do you want me to make? I'm thinking about doing these different things and really take a poll on what people actually want. So a digital product, I would say, is like right in the middle of the ladder because you can make significant amount of money if you do it right and you have good content that just pairs well with your audience. What I call the product content fit, which means if you create a specific content and if you can find that product that fits best, you can make a lot of money. But also sometimes you don't make a lot of money because depending on how you market it, if it's not a good fit, might takes a couple of tries. So some people still crush it on this, which brings us to the next level of the actual ladder, which is having your own business. So having your own business and your own services or your own products, whether it's being a physical product or it being a service that you can actually help your audience with, or maybe it's a software that you created through vibe coding, whatever it is, number one, is probably gonna be your biggest risk because it's gonna take a lot of time. It's gonna take a lot of things to build. It takes a lot of effort. Sometimes it takes a lot of money to do that. You got a lot of factors in play. Depending on your business savviness level, or if you already have a business, you can start thinking about that in this part of the ladder. But the benefit of that is enormous because if you can create something that has product content fit, you'll be able to just support your audience, support your community with this tool that you actually have. And since they're already a part of your community and they already have massive trust with you, it'll be easier to sell them and get them into your community. Because nowadays, there's a lot of softwares out there. There's a lot of tools out there. But what makes the biggest difference is the distribution. And if you have the community and the audience, you have the distribution. Using this ladder model, you'll be able to start thinking about what kind of avenue of revenue that you can follow when it comes to your personal brand. Do you want to go just relying on views and getting people to actually pay you through AdSense, or you wanted to create your own digital products? Or do you want to create your own consulting and memberships? Or do you want to create your own physical products and physical services that you can offer, maybe even your own software to your audience? Start thinking about what kind of product would fit best and what kind of offer, more importantly, would fit best to your current audience and your current followers. Now, if you made it this far and have gained at least one thing that is valuable for you, it would be amazing if you'd be able to click the subscribe button and like this video. That will also help a small channel like mine and also will help other people be able to learn about how they can grow personal branding as well. But now let's go back to the video and talk about how we can do this sustainably. Now, motivation is typically unreliable. If you just think that, okay, I'm gonna record, I'm gonna figure this out, you're probably fired up right now in this video, and I'm gonna just do this whole thing as he says. Now, if you just rely on motivation, it's not reliable, you know? Sometimes you feel motivated, sometimes you don't. That's kind of how most creators don't really build the brand that they wanna build. Because if you rely on that, you'll eventually quit, you eventually get burnout. But there is a way that you can actually do this sustainably. You can actually do this like an actual business. You can actually do this like the big creators do, on how to avoid burnout and actually focusing on the long term. Think about Gary Vee. It takes him years to get to where he is now. Now, if you think about Mr. Beast, before he got to where he is, he spent about 6 to 7 years just posting on YouTube consistently. And he understands that the long game is the way to go. And that's how you're going to have to play if you're serious about building your personal brand. Now, at this point, you probably understand that building a personal brand is a long-term game. But don't let that scare you though, because if you truly want to impact the world and you actually want to build a community around you that supports you, this is the type of work that is required. But now the question that you might be asking is, how can you do this consistently? You know, we talked about in the growth equation that consistency is a big part of this. So how do you actually avoid the creator burnout before it hits? Well, there's a couple of things that you can do. And it's something that personally I do myself and something that I've done over the past few years of me creating content. And honestly, it might be a little bit different for you and it might be a little bit different for other people. I know that Mr. Beast, if you see his 24-hour days, he works for like 16 hours recording videos. He can just be on the go like that. But I know myself that I probably couldn't go like that. So I had to create a schedule that works for me. So typically, the first thing that I start with is that I always batch my content. This way, I reduce the pressure of having to shoot every single day. To me, because I own my own business and I'm running a business on a day-to-day, I wanted to make sure that everything is recorded and everything can be distributed months ahead of the time. So typically, I batch my content once every 2 weeks or once every month, depending on what my schedule is that month. The second thing that I do that I recommend people trying out to avoid the creator burnout is always looking at other different creative art pieces. So what that means is, for me, I like watching movies. I'm a huge Christopher Nolan fan. I like watching a lot of Leonardo DiCaprio movies, or maybe watching a lot of Steven Spielberg's pieces. Because for me, in order for me to feel creative, I need to get in the state of being creative. Now, if you ever have that writer's block or you just can't come up with ideas, that's typically because you're not in the state of creativity. And I love learning about the human psychology because you can always change a state. For me, typically, in order for me to get creative, I need to pretty much have nothing on my calendar because I wanted to do something that provokes my brain to be creative. I typically listen to my favorite music. For me right now, it'd be like Bad Bunny or John Summit, and really get into the move, really feeling the rhythm, because creativity, in my opinion, comes from the heart. So you gotta really think about what makes your heart kind of like joyful in that sense, right? And for me, a lot of the content that I wanna make typically have to resonate with what I find interesting. I need to feel excited about writing this specific video. Even for this, it took me a long time to actually prep to create this whole course. And if I didn't like the video that we're gonna create, I would be dreading the whole process. So really getting into the state of creativity really helped. And understanding how you get in the state of creativity is even a better play here. Because if you know exactly how you can get into a state of creativity, whether it's having to go out and walk in the park, maybe go travel somewhere new, or maybe even it's as simple as eating your favorite cereal and listening to music. Whatever it is, know your standard operating procedure on how you can be creative. Now, the third thing is also knowing when you need to rest. A lot of times after batching a production day, I try not to hit myself with a lot more work that requires a lot of thinking, because it is a lot of work to be in front of the camera. So I make sure I space out a couple of rest breaks, either after the shoot day or even a couple of days after, to make sure that if I'm actually exhausted, I take some time, get some sleep, extra sleep, maybe even loosen my mind a little bit and do something that I'm very passionate about. For me right now, probably would be like creating music. We play a little bit of video games. Really know what is your fallback and what is the rest mechanism so that you'll be able to rest and get better. And whenever you feel that burnout coming up to you, really know how you're going to plan to rest. Whether you need a bigger rest where you can, travel somewhere and just not think about content, or maybe take a little shorter break by doing something or activity that will fulfill your mind, makes yourself more joyful. So once you avoid burnout, how can you actually scale this operation? Let's say you're actually getting serious about this, you're starting to get traction, you're starting to have to create more content, your audience is growing. How do you actually sustain that level of growth? Well, as a business owner, and if you're a business owner, you can understand this too, hiring for help. Know that you're not the best at anything that you do. And that's a big realization that I had to learn when I started my business. I thought I was the greatest videographers out there. I thought I was the greatest writer out there. I was the greatest, like somebody that can take photos. And it's not true because there's other people that are better than you that can do it for you. The question is, are you willing to pay that or not, right? And strategically thinking about who you should hire is actually going to be one of the biggest unlocks in your own personal brand journey. My philosophy of hiring is start to hire on things that you're not good at first. So let's say for most people, it'll be editing. Editors are always one of the first people that I reach out to, and having a really great editor, paying them a little bit more that really want to understand your brand and understand how you speak and learn with you along the way, that is huge unlock. Because there are people out there in the world that likes to edit videos, and this is something that they're very passionate about and they're very skilled about, and you have to reward those people. So that would be the first hire that I would make. The second hire that I would make is some sort of virtual assistant. Now, I don't like using the word virtual assistants because virtual assistant can mean a lot of things. And it can mean script writer. It can mean executive assistant. It could mean post scheduler, right? Social media manager. Know what that role is, whether it's, let's say, social media manager that can handle the actual posting of your content, writing the description, writing the thumbnail, communicating with the thumbnail artist. That person would then free up your time to be able to do a lot more creative work, to think about the content, to produce more content. And lastly, on the last hiring map is a production team. So if you can hire a production team to come and help you shoot on your batch day, so you don't have to worry about setting up the cameras, setting up the lightings and all that stuff, that'll be a huge unlock for your time. Again, your goal as the creator is to provide as much value to your audience. And the more time you can spend thinking about good ideas and actually recording them and actually creating their content, that's where your time should be at. Now, once you have a team, the next thing that you gotta think about is how can you protect your brand as you grow? As you're growing your brand, you're probably starting to get asked to do this sponsorship, to do that sponsorship. A lot of people will probably wanna ask you to join in their business venture or doing this or that, right, together. And that's where things can get a little bit hectic. And one thing that you can do to help with all of that is to go back to the first module one, which is looking at the foundation. Look again in that document of why you wanted to do this in the first place. Look at your one sentence brand statement, why you're actually doing this, and for what reason, for what purpose are you actually creating personal brands? In reality, that can help filter out a lot of these things that would come your way as you're growing. Maybe you can say no to that business partnership or say no to this collaboration that you're about to have because it doesn't fit the brand that you have, it doesn't fit the community that you've built. The reason why people follow you and the reason why people want to listen to you is because you built trust with them. And by just doing a lot of random things for the sake of money or the sake of whatever, it could ruin that trust. And if you ruin that trust, you'll be able to pretty much have to regain it again. As you evolve with your brand, you also want to think about evolving with your audience. You don't want to just evolve in a way that you think is right, never including them in the journey because, again, your audience built who you are as a personal brand. Without the audience, you have no brand because nobody would associate you with anything, right? And if you have bad associations because you take on different brand deals and all that stuff that doesn't really make sense, then you just ruin your whole credibility, right? That's why this is a long game and you gotta make sure that you play the cards right to build something that is intentional. So as you're evolving your brand, start including your audience in that conversation. If you're using Instagram, you can always throw out a poll of like, hey, do you want to see me do more live stream? Or do you want to see me do more this type of content or that type of content? Do you want to see me do some in-person community? Do you want to see me collaborate with other brands that you like? That's a good question to ask your audience because your audience eventually is the one that builds your reputation. Another way that you can evolve with your audience is to start introducing things early where you don't want to completely pivot and switch to a different direction when it comes to your content, because people are gonna be like, yo, I didn't follow you for this, I didn't subscribe to you for this. But you can always test out things in little micro levels. Maybe instead of posting all 30 videos about a certain things, you can start posting 3 to 4 videos about something new that you're trying out. Gradually evolve your brand as you are also evolving your audience, as you evolve your audience at the same time. Now, that was a lot of stuff. If you made it here, you're a champ. I'll give you a little award. Editor, throw some award in there. Boom, you've got something, and hopefully you've gotten a lot of value from this video. Now, let's break down what is your 90-day launch plan would be. If you're watching this video and you really want to start that brand, let's break this down. Before you do that, make sure you click the subscribe button. It really helps me a lot as a small channel. Click that like button as well so that you can share this to other people that might need it. Now back to the video, the 90-day launch plan. So in the 90-day launch plan, the first thing that you want to do, right after this video, maybe tomorrow or whenever, right after this video, start going into and start following module 1 to the heart. Module 1 will tell you who you are as a person, start understanding what kind of brand you want to build, start understanding where your passion, your skill, and the market demand is. That's the first thing that you want to do, because you want to establish the chess pieces. You want to establish the lay of the land, right? See where you can fit in from what stories you can pull. Another pro tip on here in this step is I want to start gathering all the wins and all the stories that I have. Now, I'm guilty of this myself, because sometimes we don't think about a lot of what we do in life as a win, because we kind of just shrug it off because like, oh yeah, I've got that achievement 5 years ago, whatever, you know? But to some people, it's a big thing. So start writing that down. You know, for me, myself, right? I used to grow up in Indonesia and I moved to the United States when I was 12. And when I moved to the United States, I grew up in poverty. My parents were having trouble, kind of making money, paying bills. And that is a part of my journey. It's just kind of how it is. The more stories that you have, the more achievements that you have, and the more things that you can talk about, those are the things that are going to make you unique, one-on-one, and nobody can copy. Now, right after that, I would say start picking the platform. What is your primary and what is your amplification platform going to be? YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram. Based on the goal that you created, think about what is the right platform for you to create in. And once you have that, decide and commit to it. Don't change platforms in the next 3 weeks or 4 weeks so you're not seeing traction. That's not how it's built. Community is built when you consistently post on that platform over a long period of time. So make sure that when you pick the platform, you stay and commit to it. And if you don't know what to pick, go with your best gut and just do it. Action will speak louder than just trying to strategize and think about things, because the faster you get things done, the quicker you'll get to your results. And after that, start researching about the content that you can create. Start seeing what the different type of formats, different type of ideas that your market's starting to do. From there, start writing it down, use AI to help you out. And from here, then start planning a full day where you can just think about all your content. Block it off your calendar. What is that content going to be like? Script it word for word, maybe not word for word, depending on your flavor and what you want to do. And from there, next thing of that is spend another full day, a separate day, shooting all the content. So record all the content. And after that, if you're the one that's editing it, also block another time later that week where you can edit all the videos. Edit it using your phone on CapCut, or learn how to use Premiere Pro, or learn how to use iMovie, whatever you need. As long as you get it done and you get it posted, that should be your main priority. And after the first 30 to 60 days, you should have your first content posted. And once you have your first content posted, you just repeat that whole cycle again. Start looking at the data, look at the metrics, which content are performing well. And probably, honestly, if it's your first time ever, none of them are probably gonna perform well. And that's okay. That's how it's supposed to be. We all done it. Every creator that you ask have done it. If you have a creator that says like, oh yeah, my first video that I posted got hundreds of gazillion views, first of all, I'd be like, yo, what are you doing? Like, are you just doing stupid shit, right? And if not, then typically for most people, you'll be able to see that in the beginning, you're probably not gonna test and see anything. You just gotta keep going and keep doing it again. I'll say do this repeatedly for an entire year for you to actually make the decision whether or not something is working or not. I always say in your first year of doing content, you'll get as fast as possible to your first 100 videos, because your first 100 videos will tell you a lot of things about yourself as a person, as a creator. It also will tell you a lot of things about what works and what doesn't work. A lot of times you actually grow a lot more as a creator after creating those 100 videos other than any other time in your creating journey, because you'll be able to know all these little details about how to set up lighting, how to set up audio, how to write better hooks. All of these will come out to your first 100 videos. At the end of the day, once you click that subscribe and like button, go pause this video, rewind it to a specific section, and start to actually do it. Because you might feel good right now after watching this video, you feel like you'll learn something, but really, until you click that first post button, nothing is gonna happen. So go out there, create your content, tag me in it. That way I can check out your content. I would love to check out what you guys create. And if you guys like this content, YouTube probably thinks that you're gonna like this one too. So I'll see you there.